thanks for listening to the LCR Media Podcast, where we get to know the pros. I'm your host, LCR Naylor Taliaferro, and on today's episode, live at the Equip Expo 2022, fresh off of Influencer Live 2022, had a great time. We had Paul Jameson, the Green Industry Podcast, Caleb Allman, the Kid Contractor Podcast. I interviewed Alex Kirby. If you've already listened to that episode, you know that. If not, go ahead and check that out. Alex Kirby with Trifecta Landscaping, and Caleb interviewed Andy Mulder. Man, I'm having a brain freeze there. And with Mulder Outdoor. And then Paul interviewed Mitchell Gordy with Mitchell's Lawn Care, which he made a big announcement on that podcast. So you guys can check that out on the Green Industry Podcast. So fresh off of that, I wanted to make some more podcasts. I'm here in the Echo Means Business Lounge, and I'm joined with Alex with Mower Chute Design. How are you?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm good. I'm glad we were able to sync up this morning. I know it's busy, hectic times at times, but it seems like a kind of a chill morning, at least out here. It's probably crazy in there. But I think by the Equip opening things up more on Wednesdays, they opened up at 12. I think last year was 3. So they just keep opening it up more on Wednesday, which is helping spread people out a little bit more, I think, which that's a good idea. So this way it doesn't seem as much packed in on like Thursday was always the prime day, which is today. And then Friday, kind of people are starting to leave early, like we talked before. And so it's good. It's been a good time. What's been your experience so far at the show? You were here yesterday, right?
Yeah, it's been good. It was, I think, having the outdoor area open on Wednesdays has really helped out, kind of spread people out. But it's definitely, I think Thursday's still the busy day. It's definitely a lot busier this morning in there than what it was yesterday. But it's been good. There's some new stuff out there, and
Yeah. Well, and how many years have you been coming? This isn't your first year, obviously, right?
This will be my third year.
Okay.
So
still pretty new.
Yeah. Yep.
So 2019 was your first year then, right before the whole COVID craziness?
Yeah. So the Mower Chute, I actually bought that in the beginning of 2020, but this is a place.
So that's really very new.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll go down that path, but go ahead. You said early 2020.
Yeah. So 2019, you kind of got to come here to see what's new,
Right.
what's going on. Do I got to make design changes?
Right.
And just kind of meet everybody. So
Right.
it worked out that that fall I was able to come before my first year, kind of start getting to know some people and kind of get
into the business.
Get worked into it a little bit.
Nice. Well, let's go from there then. You so Mower Chute Design, what is that, and how did you get involved?
Yeah, so it's just electric operator controlled discharge chute. It's
OCD, right?
Yeah, OCDC, and mine's controlled by an electric motor, and then you have like a toggle switch foot pedal, depending on what option you would prefer to run, and that's pretty much it. Battery powered, so you can tap of a foot, tap of your fingers, you can open, close, stop anywhere in between, which is a nice advantage to it over some other ones. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
As far as that goes. And I got started in this 2020.
You say that as far as that goes, but like that's probably an OCDC.
Yeah.
That is probably one of the most critical add-ons to a lawn to any lawn care professional, right? Like unless they've got a mulching kit on their mowers, like most of the small ones, are already kind of built that way. But when you get to the commercial levels, the walk behinds, the sit down or stand on zero turns, they just got a big wide open chute because you want to blast through that grass, but you want to cut through thick stuff, but I mean, there's plenty of times where you got to clean up, you don't want to be blowing stuff on the beds and the driveways and people and cars. And there's plenty of times where you have to control the discharge, and that flap that the mowers have, that's not it all the time or ever. So that's a critical piece is having, a side chute deflector, or like you said, an operated controlled discharge chute. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's it's so you're taking it really like modest, but it's a huge deal. And there's multiple different types out there, but yours is very specific with the motor. And I use it personally, and I really like it. And that's why I wanted to get you on here. So I don't often just talk about or promote things that I don't use, because I want to be able to know what I'm saying and what I'm talking about. So it's a big deal. And I think the Mower Chute design is a really good design. So I didn't want you to undersell that.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think a lot of people don't understand, the safety aspect of a lot of it. Going around cars, going around, what's a front door cost, like a screen door, glass door.
What's a life cost? No lie, not to deter this, but when I was first looking into employees, like 5 years ago, maybe I think it was, I was looking into general liability, and because full disclosure, when I first started my business and I was solo, I didn't have any of that stuff. I didn't even know what any of that, this whole social media thing wasn't even as big of a thing. Like there was Geek to Freak and some of the early folks, but they weren't really talking about that. They were talking about more of like being an operator and doing the work and customers and stuff, so I didn't know all about that. So, but I quickly learned, and I got my general liability insurance, got workers' comp. Technically, you should have that for yourself, even if you're an owner operator, in case something happens to you. But most people are like, oh, I got insurance through my spouse or whatever, and that's fine. But when you have employees, you got to have workers' comp. So I say all that to say that when I eventually looked into that, one of the companies I looked into told me the story about how critical it is to have workers' comp. Like you have no idea until you don't have it and something happens. And he said one of their companies had a lapse and it let their insurance lapse for a month before they renewed it, and they killed one of their employees by accident with a mower. Something they ran over, like, sometimes in yards there's those wooden stakes that are like property markers or something. They ran it over and it just shot out and impaled their employee. And like he had to just live with that, one, that he had that happened, and two, he probably is paying this person's family for a lifetime. You know what I mean? Like that's tragic on so many levels. And if he had workers' comp, at least that could have saved and covered his business and paid for his employee. That's what it's for these extremely rare, horrible accidents. But maybe if he had an OCDC, that wouldn't have happened, to your point, is what I'm trying to say. That's an extreme example, but it happens. I mean, likely you're just busting out windows, which is still problematic. Continue.
No mowing around cars, and obviously you got your extreme cases like that. But my neighbor had one, and this is actually the gentleman that started the company. And when he first moved in, he was mowing his yard, and you think everything's fine. Well, there's actually a chunk of metal that was probably 2-inch around in his yard, and it actually shot out into my yard when I was walking to the house. And luckily, he had his power chute down, and it only went maybe 2 feet.
Yeah,
but that's a big, heavy chunk of metal. We found it in my yard, and it was probably close to a pound.
Yeah.
So that easily could have went through. Yeah. Injured me or
damaged something,
damaged windows or whatever. So
we think we're just cutting grass, but at the end of the day, you don't know what's in that grass sometimes.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how close you look or watch. There's always going to be stuff you miss,
and then not only that, from an efficiency standpoint, or in addition to that, from an efficiency standpoint, like if you leave less of a mess to clean up afterwards, then you're just making more money. You're on and off properties a lot faster. So that's yet another use to close it or have it half open, or you can micromanage that. Another thing that I like about the Power Chute design is you can literally micromanage that opening however you want, whatever you want to do, a little open, a little close, whatever, like sometimes the wind's blowing too much. So I have it like almost at like a 45 or something, if that makes sense, So it's just kind of like just up enough so that it's kind of keeping the stuff. It's still flying out, but it's not coming way back up in my face. The chute is still helping it kind of go off to the side, but it's not closed or pointed down. So it's just kind of piling up the thick grass sometimes, there. But so you can really micromanage it to keep things clean and efficient. So that's another aspect of having a chute blocker,
Yeah, keeping grass out of mulch beds so you don't have to blow that out, because you never blow just the grass out.
Yeah, you're always blowing the
mulch in there. And a lot of guys that have never used one in general, and they mount one up, or they call me and talk to me about it. And a lot of times they call me back and say, I turned my 5-day route to almost a 4-day route just because of the time savings from that. They're like, we could add more, but we're doing the same amount of work. So, maybe take that day off. You can kind of mess around, weather.
Yeah.
You kind of get a little bit more leeway on how you can set up your routes and things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were starting to say before I completely interrupted and added all this extra stuff. So how did you get into this? How did you buy Power Chute design?
So I just kind of fell into it, honestly. I was an auto mechanic before for, 12 years. And I had a neighbor move in, never knew him before, and he said, "So you're a mechanic?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm kind of looking to retire. Are you kind of interested in that type of work?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Come out sometime and check it out." And he's like, I've been looking for 4 or 5 years and just haven't been able to find the right person that he thinks will be able to kind of continue on, because he started this from basically selling like 1 to 2 chutes the first year to local guys, and around I think 99 or 2000, and has just grown it steadily from there. And he doesn't want to sell it to somebody just to run it in the ground. He wants to see it continue to grow and continue on. So it took a while to find that, and the numbers worked out. So I said, "Yeah, let's do it. Why not?"
Nice. And how has the transition been for you?
It's been pretty good. The first year, you try not to mess with anything. You just run it how he ran it, and you don't want to screw up something that's working already.
Right. So broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. You go into the spring. That's obviously the busy time of year. So it's hard when I bought it in January to kind of try to implement or change anything anyways. So then the next year going into that's when you start implementing these changes and things like that. So yeah, it's this last year I kind of streamlined everything, streamlined the ordering process, streamlined everything. So it's all more automated to free up my time, because this is, I'm the owner. I do everything.
Yeah, so, you're the everything. Yeah.
Yep. No employees, no nothing. So anytime you can save a couple hours worth of book work a day by automating something, it's worth the $50 a month subscription to whatever service I got to run that. So it saves a lot of time in the long run. And
and so the process, is it like you get the parts shipped into you, and you're also the person putting these things together and then shipping them out, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the main thing that you're doing, other than communicating with all the customers, new customers, old customers, replacing things, sending out parts for people, things like that. So
yeah, you spend the winter time. Obviously, it's slower. Not as many people mowing in the winter. You have obviously down south. You're still kind of doing some of that, but
right.
People got other things on their mind. Snow removal, things like that, and so that's when you sit down for 2 or 3 months and you basically prep everything for the spring, so you don't have to do that. So you set up all your welding, and you basically start an assembly line, everything. About December, and that's what you do all winter. You sit there and weld and make sure you got everything lined up, organize a shop so it's all ready to go come springtime, and then it's balls to the wall. Normally about mid-February is when it starts taking off.
Just lots of orders, and you just got to start pumping them out.
Yep.
Toro's brand new battery-powered Revolution Series products are changing the lawn care industry. With all-day runtime from the innovative HyperCell battery system, you can expect to power through your entire day, every day. Head to revolution.toro.com to see how Toro is transforming the game with the latest equipment innovations, or click the link tree in the episode description to get you there fast. Hey friends, Mr. Producer here, and I've been listening to Naylor emphasize route density on his podcast for over a year now, and I've encouraged him to take all this material and create a masterclass to put all of his knowledge in one place and share it with you. This is going to be a live 3-week course. Nothing's pre-recorded. You'll have access to group live streams and one-on-ones with Naylor. Every session ends with action steps that you can implement right away in your business. Plus, you'll get a copy of the session recordings emailed to you. Hey, if you want to learn how to make $1,000 all the way up to $3,000 a day in lawn maintenance through route density, then you need to click the link in the episode description. Trust me, you won't be disappointed.
I hope you're soaking up a lot of premium content here on the LCR Media Podcast. Hi, this is Andrew Martinez with the Lone Star Lawn Talk Podcast, fellow green industry show. On the Lone Star Lawn Talk, we talk equipment, business, and family 3 times a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. In our weekly series, we continue hot topic talks and interviews with special guests that own service and product businesses just like you and me. As you traverse through the route of entrepreneurship in the green industry, it's my ultimate vision and goal to help you dodge potholes and keep margin in your businesses. You can find the Lone Star Lawn Talk podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all major platforms. You can also visit us on our Instagram page. Our show will contribute to your axe sharpening arsenal for your business and life. Hey, after hanging out here with Naylor on the LCR Media Podcast, stop by and give us a listen. I'm totally excited to have another listener and friend. And as always, a big Lone Star thanks.
So what are some of the things that you offer? I know, we're talking about the basic overall design, but I know there's some other things, that you offer on the website as well, correct?
Yeah. The other biggest one, and probably most of the people are going to know, is a power lockers. It's a wheel chock system. You bolt down to your trailer. It sits in a rail, so you can remove it. So it still keeps your trailer flat when it's not in use. And then that way you could stack multiple mowers or whatever you're hauling in a row and still be able to get them off easily. Just unpin it, pull it off, and that's it. And then that's pretty much it. I used to, in the purchase of that company, the guy made a trimmer rack that bolts to your rollover bars on 0 turns.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, I don't know, sales have kind of gone down, so I think that's just kind of peter out. It wasn't a big product as far as sales go anyways. So there's some more options out there now. So just kind of, I don't think it's something I'll bring back. But the power lockers, I brought back a larger size that he actually just sold out of and never went down the manufacturing path to get it going again. And that's the 400. It's for more of like an ATV. So this can range all the way from, I think 9-inch would be the smallest wheel size, all the way up to 27 to 28, kind of depending on the model ATV you're using. But so anywhere in between there, I pretty much got it covered for the most part.
Okay. And so now that you have the Power Chute, specifically that design down pat, and like you said, you didn't really want to mess with anything. What have you done or tweaked or are you thinking of doing to maybe add to that ultimate design, if at all?
I've kind of played around the idea of doing something with the motors. This last year, I've ran into some issues, and it's on the manufacturing side. And, I don't know, from what I've talked to with some of the other big-time guys out here, they've been having the same issues with electrical stuff. It's just, they
don't make them like they used to. Huh?
They're just they're trying to crank out the same amount of stuff with less employees or tighter timeline, whatever it might be.
So the quality is not as good.
Yeah, and so we got some fixes implemented in that to come out, roll out. Should be just about any day. I should be receiving those. But other than that, it's tough because, like the motor, if you want to upgrade it, I have to go to a much larger design, so that's going to add more weight. Obviously, it's going to add more cost. So it's kind of, what do you want to do? You can get a motor for $60 right now, and they're kind of phasing them out, but you can go to a local parts store and pick them up too. And that's one big advantage to those is it's not specific to just my design. You can get it at parts stores locally. Right. You don't have to order it through me, but you start going into something more specific for me, you might not be able to get it locally. You might double the cost, and that's tough for somebody already saying $60. It's kind of
right.
But you start talking somebody, you got to spend $150 to replace this.
Right.
It starts to cut back on, do I want to mess with this? Do I want to mess with, maybe something that's not quite as easy to use and, save the money on replacement parts down the road. So it's tough because then you got to carry, every time you change something, the prior 20 years of people that have bought this, you still have to keep all those other stuff in stock in order to do that, to service their needs. And you can't just say everybody that's bought them for the last 20 years, you have to buy all new ones now because I changed everything. You can't get parts for the old ones. So at that point, you're carrying essentially 2 lines of stuff, and is it going to be worth that? But it's the same. It's actually the same motor. I've looked at a couple, like the Ferris stand-on blowers, and it's actually the same motor as that. It's just a different connector is the only difference between the two. It's it's used in a lot of ag. So like John Deere's for like the combines are used a lot. So they're fairly common. I know people have issues with them, but it's one of those things where you're pumping out as many as you are, you're going to have issues. So
yeah,
I try to explain that, and
it's all like maintenance and just user whatever it's wear and tear. There you go. Yeah, just normal wear and tear that you're going to get from using these things. So
yeah, and you get some guys that bend over the chutes backwards and destroy something. They it's my fault at that point, but
no, it's not. Look, what one of my guys actually he did completely destroy the one that I have, and I just tried to nurse it back to health. I was able to rebend it back to be functional. But the I think the gears, whatever in the motor is just shot. So like it stopped, like really, like you could see it spinning, but it just wasn't opening or closing anything. I was like, come on. But I had the other motor, so I was able to just swap it out real quick. So aside from the additional expense, if you're, buying extra motors, things like that, it was a super quick and easy process for me to do that. Like I could have almost, if I had it on, like in the trailer with me, I could have just done it on the fly, but I just did it at the end of the day when I came back to storage and just, guys went home and I was like, all right, let me fix this, I think one day I bent everything because that was a project in and of itself. And then I was like, and then it stopped working properly. And that's when I was like, okay, another day I'll have to change the motor out. But that was like super easy to do that versus some of the other ones I've tried. Like I've tried a lot of different chute blockers. I'm not going to name the names, but Toro has their own OCDC or whatever, and it's basically just a massive rubber deflector that they have already with like another rubber flap like underneath it that lines up perfectly with the chute opening, and it swings open and close. And I guess you can swing it like halfway open and all the way open. So you just have two options there, and that's all fine and dandy. But you still have that massive chute, that's deflector that's keeping it all. So when you're cutting through thick grass, even when you have the thing wide open, it's still kind of getting all like up in that general area right next to you. It's not shooting it out as far as you want when you get into thick stuff. So I didn't really like that. Plus, it was all cable driven, right? And as we all know, the cables stretch and get clogged up, and it just gets super annoying. And the other brands that I've tried in the past that also have cables, the exact same annoying thing happens. So that's kind of like the whole cable thing. Then there's the ones with the big levers, right? And you just kind of raise and lower it. And then you have this massive thing sticking up in the air. It's just one more thing. My deck lever and my parking brake are already getting caught on tree branches and God knows what, throwing my my mower in the park or something. Or I've even had like my mower turned off because a branch hit the key just in the right way. I'm like, come on. So the last thing I need is this massive rod sticking up for me to reach out and swap open and close. I'm like, man. So when I saw the Power Chute design, I was like, I think this is the best of all the worlds for me, and obviously a lot of people, and I think it's perfect. But yeah, I think any of them are going to get messed up by operator error. If people can mess up anything nowadays, so, and that shouldn't be at the fault of the designer, you know what I mean? But I think overall the Power Chute design is pretty durable for the stuff that has unfortunately happened in my business. So, but yeah, I think it's a really good design. And to your point, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Like, just keep on going. And sales are good. People keep buying it. I just randomly got you a bunch of sales inadvertently by using it. And I mean, not even the social media thing, just like having it on and getting my mower serviced. And my local dealer was like, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's a Power Chute. Look. And he was like, oh my gosh, like I got a bunch of guys looking for, chute deflectors or whatever. And so they reached out to you and ordered a whole bunch for somebody, right? So yeah, that's cool. Like you said earlier off air, it's word of mouth, right? That's always just like with our business. That's the biggest marketing, number one marketing. You do a good job or you offer a good product or service, and people will just spread the word for you. So
yeah, no, word of mouth is, I personally think, the most sustainable marketing you can do. Between that and good customer service, you can't go wrong with those two things. People just telling people, whether it's selling a product, mowing lawns, treat your customers right. If there's a problem, just take care of it. It's not a big deal. Do what's right. And then, just keep doing what you're doing. If you have a good product, and honestly, I've seen bad products do really well because they have good customer service.
Yeah. That's whole Apple, mentality. You have like dare I say, cult following. You've got a loyal customer base of millions of people that even if you just come out with a subpar product, they're still going to back it and, be like, it's not the greatest, but, we just love Apple. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, for an example, because it's just that word of mouth, that culture, that loyalty. And, hopefully those companies, will, which I know Apple does, if there is an issue, which is very rare, they're immediately on top of it and try to fix it. And in our industry, it's similar things, like with the Toro Company and some of these other big brands, they're responsive to these issues and they try and tweak it up and listen and make adjustments where they need. And I'm sure you would do the same thing if needed, if you started getting a lot of feedback about things, something that wasn't working right, or maybe or like the motors that aren't, the quality all of a sudden that you wouldn't have any idea until people start using it. You know what I mean? It looks the same, but you don't know until you start getting in there. So, but that's what it's all about, is the word of mouth, continuing that word of mouth is to like be able to react to those things, properly, so that people are happy with the response and the response time and stuff, which, you've been good at that too. So yeah, I think that's a great note to end on. Was there anything else that you wanted to share that we didn't touch upon?
I don't think so. Just touching on that, I can't stress enough customer service. It's, in my previous background to automotive, that's the majority of how you win over customers is through your customer service experience. Taking your car and you get a lot of trust, and especially now you get cars up into the $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 range. It takes a lot of trust in, like a shop like that to throw them your keys and say, here you go, take it for the day. So, it transfers over into everything. You just have to, you got to keep up on things, just like this motor situation. I know what's going on. I have parts en route to fix it, but I don't have anything now. I'm willing to send you one now. If you have an issue, I'll send you one when it's corrected. And, it really does go a long way as far as retaining your customers and keeping the loyalty there.
100%. Well said. Well, on that note, Alex, thank you for joining me for this podcast. Glad to get you on and share your story and talk about the Power Chute design. I've been thinking about having like an in-between IBG episode about it, but I'm like, it'd be much better to actually just get you on the podcast and we could talk about it together.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. Thank you to the Toro Company for sponsoring the LCR Media podcast. And until the next episode, guys, this is the Lawn Care Rookie signing off.
This has been an LCR Media and Mr. Producer production.